Hey everyone, before we get started today, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button and make sure you've got notifications turned on. You
Yeah.
know how it is, so you don't miss out on any of our future deep dives.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so today we're going to be diving into Intel,
All right.
specifically looking at whether it might be a hidden gem for value investors, with the stock and all.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's, you know, they've definitely seen better days,
You have.
but we want to see if there's maybe some potential there.
Yeah, could be a comeback story. Who knows?
Exactly. So we're really going to focus on, that stock potential.
All right, let's get into it.
All right. So the main source we're using for this deep dive is the Intel, a deep dive analysis for value investors report.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll be pulling in some other, stock data as well.
All right.
So I think we all know Intel best for their CPUs.
Yeah,
They're in practically every computer out there.
everywhere.
But what else are they doing?
Yeah.
How does it all translate to their bottom line?
Well, you'd be surprised actually. Beyond CPUs, they're into a lot of other products,
Like what?
like chipsets, for example, network interface controllers,
Wow.
and even GPUs, like the graphics cards you need for gaming and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But the really interesting part is how they're trying to move beyond that traditional PC market.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're getting into AI, cloud computing, even the Internet of Things.
The Internet of Things.
IoT.
So we're talking like smart homes, all those connected devices.
Exactly, that's the area. And it's a big market growing all the time.
Sounds promising.
Yeah, well, in 2022 alone, their IoT solutions brought in $4 billion in revenue. So that tells you something.
Okay, so they're diversifying. That's good.
It is, but we got to remember the semiconductor industry is super competitive.
Yeah. It's a tough world out there.
It is. So how is Intel actually holding up against the competition?
That's the big question, right?
It is. And like I said, it's a dynamic landscape right now. You've got AI, cloud computing, IoT driving huge demand, but that means more competition too.
Yeah, makes sense.
So you've got NVIDIA, for instance, they're really dominating the AI and gaming scene with their GPUs.
Yeah.
Then you have AMD giving Intel a run for their money in the CPU market, their traditional area.
So it sounds like Intel's really getting squeezed.
You could say that. And then there's TSMC, the world's biggest contract chip manufacturer.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of
They're
that.
actually producing chips for a bunch of companies, including some of Intel's rivals.
Oh, wow. So they're kind of playing both sides.
Yeah, it adds another layer of complexity to the whole situation.
That's like a chess game, isn't it?
It really is. And speaking of players who's actually calling the shots at Intel these days, I know there was some news about a change in leadership.
Yeah, there was. I remember hearing something about that.
Well, Pat Gelsinger, who came back as CEO in 2021, he retired at the end of December last year.
Last year already. Wow.
Yeah, time flies.
It does. So who took over?
So it's a little unusual, but David Zinsner and Michelle Johnston Holthouse, they're sharing the CEO role as interim co-CEOs.
Co-CEOs, huh? That's not something you see every day.
Nope, not very common.
Interesting. So Gelsinger, he came in with a lot of hype, that big IDM 2.0 strategy. What happened with that?
Well, that's where things get a little tricky,
How so?
Well, the idea behind IDM 2.0 was to really revitalize Intel, get back their technological edge and become a major player in that foundry business.
Foundry business meaning?
Meaning they'd actually make chips for other companies too.
Okay, I see. So like TSMC.
Exactly like TSMC.
Sounds ambitious.
Very ambitious, but it wasn't exactly a smooth ride for Gelsinger,
Oh, it happened.
Well, he ran into production delays, financial losses, all sorts of challenges.
Oh, wow.
And that brings us to a really important question for any potential investor. How is Intel's financial health looking right now?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
Oh.
So let's take a look at the number.
All right, let's dive in.
So it's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Intel has always been known for generating revenue.
Yeah, they're a big company.
They are, but things have been a bit shaky lately. In 2023, they brought in $54.23 billion, which on the surface doesn't sound bad,
No, not at all.
but it's actually a 14% decline from the previous year.
Oh, wow.
And get this, they reported a net loss of $15.96 billion for the year.
A net loss.
Yeah, a net loss.
That's not good.
Not a good look. And what about dividends? Intel was known for paying those out regularly, right?
Yeah, they were.
Well, they had to reduce the payout recently,
Oh, no.
which doesn't exactly inspire confidence in investors. And then you add to that the fact that their free cash flow is currently in the negative.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's starting to raise some red flags.
So the financial picture isn't exactly pretty.
Not at the moment.
But how do we make sense of all this? What does it mean for the stock itself? Is it undervalued Ready for a rebound, or are we headed for a crash?
Well, figuring out Intel's intrinsic value right now is a real head-scratcher.
Yeah.
The semiconductor industry is inherently cyclical, you
Up
know?
and down, up and down.
It's exactly. Lots of peaks and valleys. And with Intel's current performance, it's really tough to predict where things are headed.
So even the experts are unsure.
Well, there are tools we can use to try and estimate intrinsic value, things like a discounted cash flow analysis or DCF.
Okay.
But even those have their limitations, especially given Intel's current low predictability rank.
How low are we talking?
We're talking a 1-star rating, according to Guru Focus.
Oof, not great.
Not ideal.
So there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding Intel's future.
There is.
What are other investors thinking about all this? Is there any buzz on the street?
It's interesting the market sentiment is all over the place. Right now, we're seeing mixed signals from insider activity.
What do you mean?
Well, there's been some insider buying, which can signal confidence.
Right.
But then there's also been a fair amount of insider selling.
Oh, so some people are jumping ship.
Well, it's hard to say for sure. And then you've got the analysts. They have a wide range of price targets for the stock.
Really, what's the spread?
Well, the median is around $37.31, but it goes as high as $62 and as low as $17.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
Yeah, it shows you just how much uncertainty there is.
So is anyone actually betting on Intel to make a comeback?
Well, there are some hints that a turnaround might be on some investors' minds.
What makes you say that?
The short interest in Intel has actually decreased recently.
Okay, and what does that mean?
Well, it could suggest that at least some people are sensing a potential rebound.
A potential rebound, huh? Well, I guess we'll have to dive a little deeper to see what's really going on.
Exactly. We'll explore all that and more when we come back.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, stay tuned. Okay, so we've talked about how Intel is kind of at this crossroads right now.
Yeah, they've got the potential, but also facing some big challenges.
Right, and for investors, that means there's both risk and potential reward.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So for those of us who are willing to maybe take a calculated risk, what would Intel need to do to really turn things around, and see those stock prices climb?
Well, first off, they've got to execute that turnaround strategy flawlessly.
You mean the IDM 2.0 plan that Gelsinger started?
Exactly, the one about becoming a major player in the foundry business.
Right, and getting back that technological edge.
Yeah, they need to prove to everyone that they can actually deliver on that.
But you mentioned earlier that some companies might be hesitant to actually use Intel's foundry services.
Right. Some potential clients are worried that Intel might use their knowledge of those companies' chip designs to their advantage.
Oh, I see. So it's like a conflict of interest, kind of.
Yeah, it's a matter of trust, really.
So Intel needs to build that trust, prove that they can be a reliable partner.
Exactly. And when it comes to stock performance, their financial health needs a serious boost, too.
Yeah, those negative free cash flow numbers we talked about, those are a big concern.
Investors want to see consistent profits.
Makes sense.
They need to know that Intel is a solid investment.
So solid financials, check. What else?
Well, leadership is going to be crucial, too. Gelsinger's departure leaves a big gap.
Right. So can Zinsner and Holthaus, can they actually execute that turnaround strategy?
Yeah, that's the big question. And can they instill confidence in the company?
Yeah. Can they steer the ship through all the ups and downs of the semiconductor industry?
Exactly. Those are all factors that are going to impact investor sentiment.
So it sounds like betting on Intel right now is kind of like betting on a racehorse that's shown some promise.
Haha. Yeah, I like that analogy.
But it's also stumbled a few times. So is there enough there to really warrant taking the risk?
It's definitely a high-risk, high-reward situation,
Yeah.
But think about it this way. If Intel can execute their strategy, improve their financials, and show strong leadership, we could be looking at a major comeback story.
Yeah, the comeback kid of the tech world.
Exactly. And for investors who took the gamble early on,
the rewards could be huge.
Potentially. Yeah. But remember, we're just exploring possibilities here.
Right. Of course, not giving financial advice, just diving deep into the data.
Exactly. And there's actually one more aspect of Intel's business we haven't really touched on yet that could be a big factor in their future.
Oh, okay. What's that?
Their move beyond hardware, into software and services.
That's an interesting point. Why is that move significant? Especially for investors looking at the long-term potential of the stock.
Well, it's a sign that Intel is adapting to a bigger trend in the tech industry. Companies are realizing that just selling physical products isn't enough anymore.
Right.
They need to offer a whole ecosystem of solutions.
So it's not just about the chips themselves, it's about the software that runs on them, the services that support them.
Exactly, the whole package.
Okay, so what have they been doing in that area?
Well, they've been investing in software development, cloud-based services, even cybersecurity solutions.
So they're trying to become like a one-stop shop for all things tech.
Kind of like Microsoft and Amazon, yeah.
Ambitious.
Yeah.
But do they really have what it takes to compete with those giants?
It's definitely a challenge, but Intel does have some advantages.
Like what?
Well, their deep understanding of hardware gives them a head start in developing optimized software solutions.
That makes sense.
Plus, they already have a huge network of partners and customers.
So they're not starting from scratch.
Exactly, which is a good thing, but the question is, can they really deliver value to customers in this new space, you know?
And ultimately, will it have a positive impact on their stock?
Right. It's a long game, and we'll have to see how it plays out.
So Intel's future hinges on a few key things: their ability to innovate, execute that turnaround, and navigate both the hardware and software landscapes.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating story, and we're just getting started.
Okay, so after the break, we'll wrap up our Intel deep dive by taking a closer look at their potential as a long-term investment.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, the potential upsides, where Intel stands right now. But let's think like investors for a minute and look ahead. What does Intel's long-term potential look like? 5, 10 years down the line, what could drive their growth?
Well, one thing that really jumps out is just how massive Intel's operation is. They're a global, giant, huge manufacturing footprint, a massive network of partners. And their brand, practically everyone knows Intel. It's synonymous with computing.
Right, they're a household name, basically.
They are, and that gives them a lot of leverage.
So even with the challenges they're facing, they still have the resources, the infrastructure to make big moves.
Exactly, and they're not afraid to make big bets either. Remember those investments in Europe we talked about?
Yeah, billions of dollars.
Exactly. They're pouring money into expanding their manufacturing, building out their supply chain. They're in it for the long haul.
Playing the long game, for sure. But it's not just about size and scale, right? They're also investing heavily in research and development.
Oh, absolutely. Pushing the boundaries of semiconductor technology, exploring new materials, new architectures, new manufacturing processes.
So they're not just trying to catch up. They want to be ahead of the curve.
That's the goal. And they're making progress in some really exciting areas.
Like what?
Artificial intelligence, for one, high-performance computing.
And get this, even quantum computing.
Quantum computing.
It sounds
That's something out of Star Trek. I know, right? But it's becoming a reality, and Intel wants to be a leader in that field. That kind of innovation could be a game changer for them.
Yeah, that could really shake things up. So lots of potential for growth and innovation, it seems. But what about the financials? We know they've taken a hit recently. Can they get back on track? Start delivering those consistent profits that investors love?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's tough to say for sure, but there are signs that they're moving in the right direction.
Okay, like what?
Well, they've been streamlining their operations, cutting costs, focusing on their core businesses. They're also diversifying their revenue streams, moving beyond just hardware sales and getting into software and services.
So they're trying to build a more resilient business model.
Exactly, one that can weather the storms.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that the semiconductor industry is cyclical.
Right, ups and downs.
Exactly. Intel's been through tough times before, and they've always managed to bounce back.
So there's a history of recovery, but no guarantees.
Right. That's the thing. They're facing some serious competition, and the tech landscape is always changing. It's a dynamic situation.
So where does that leave us? If we had to sum it all up for investors, what's the bottom line on Intel buy, hold, or sell?
Well, I can't give financial advice, but I can give you some things to think about.
Right.
Intel's got a rich history, a powerful brand, tons of potential, but they're also facing some real challenges.
So it's a gamble, basically.
You could say that there's both risk and potential reward. It's a bet on your ability to innovate, execute that turnaround, and navigate the complexities of the semiconductor industry.
High risk, high reward. A classic investor's dilemma.
It is. Ultimately, the decision of whether or not to invest in Intel is a personal one. You got to weigh your risk tolerance, your investment goals, and your own assessment of their future prospects. Do your research, think it through, and make an informed decision.
Great advice. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Intel, I think the key takeaway is that they're at a turning point.
Yeah, a pivotal moment.
They have the resources, the talent to succeed, but they also have a lot to prove.
It'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Absolutely. So for those of you who want to keep up with Intel's journey and hear more deep dives like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.